There's a lot of questioning now about overhead ratios as a way of representing things. I put a link to an article to read more about it, but yeah, a number of years ago, the nonprofit starvation cycle. And so basically the point is if you invest in overhead, if you underinvest in overhead, you will be perhaps less effective. So let's put it this way. If the university doesn't put enough money in maintaining the projectors, so they go out when a professor wants to go teach a class, or the lights aren't working. I mean, don't you think that's going to have consequences down the line? People will be graduating, wait a minute, it's like half my classes, like, you know, there was always equipment going on. So there is such a thing as under-investing in your overhead. And so, the authors here made a good point about a number of different kinds of things. So like the information technology is an infrastructure item that can help programs like work across the board, financial systems to know how much money are you spending and where, and how is it effective, giving skills and training, having a process to raise money. So a good example of the infrastructure is pretty much what in the back of my head every day we meet. We're building infrastructure all the time. Our use of Slack. It would be a lot harder to do most of what we're doing in this class if there was no Slack and we were relying on Blackboard. Or if we didn't have Blackboard at all. We just have to wait until we all met and everyone's exchanging phone numbers or something, email addresses. And then skills and training. So some of you know that in some of your projects, and I'll probably be pretty assertive sometimes, like, hey, I want to meet with you. I want to show you how to do such and such. Why am I doing that? Infrastructure, because the more the background, like general knowledge that exists within the class, the more that everyone is able to execute better within the projects that they have. All right, so nonprofit performance. I think if you, those of you who are either taken with someone here on campus, volunteers in philanthropy or introduction to nonprofit organizations, some of this will come up, but I think I'm just giving you the summary. So the point about nonprofit performance is there's always more going on than just the money. So yes, money matters in nonprofits, how you spend money, that's very important. But there are other things going on. Transparency. How do I know where the money is being spent? Is someone like raising, yeah, there are plenty of good causes in nonprofits, plenty of wonderful causes. But just because someone has a great cause, that doesn't mean they're spending the money right. And that doesn't mean that they're being honest. It's like, hey, I'm collecting money for veterans. I'm collecting money for veterans, that's a good cause, right? But how do you know where I'm putting it? How do you know that what I'm doing is effective? So having some transparency is important. Governance, like who's watching over the money and the results? Who's responsible? Is it just like, just me? I'm collecting for a good cause, trust me. Or is there some kind of a board that provides some oversight? Preferably board members who are professional and can contribute. There was a case recently in Silicon Valley. There was a startup, and it was a very ambitious startup involving like being able to do more blood tests with smaller amounts of blood drawn. And it turns out it didn't really turn out as was promised. But what they discovered, as more attention came to it, was when you looked at the board of directors of this startup, there weren't any members on this board who had experience in pharmaceuticals. They had some pretty good famous names like former secretaries of state, it's like, really experts, but they knew nothing about this industry. So, governance is important, leadership, and what kinds of results are you delivering? So there's really a more, so we want to try to figure out how to allocate our resources better for social causes and nonprofits. It does involve money, but it's actually more complicated. And these are some examples of organizations that provide insight into all of these, into the financing, into the transparency, the governance, and the results. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Terry Hall to explain like some of the resources that we have at SPA to be able to do this.
Hi, I'm Terry. Passing out business cards. If you don't have one already, please take one. I'm also passing around these bookmarks that talk a little bit about grant space, and I'm going to lay out what grant space is. So, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Terry Hall. I'm the manager of the Writing and Career Development Center downstairs. We have 3 principal services that we offer. One of them is academic, where we help you with public administration papers and assignments, presentations, and the like. Another one is for residents and cover letters. And still a third is what I'm here to talk to you about today, the Funding Information Network. So I'm going to run through the services we offer, and I'm going to give you a brief overview of Foundation Directory. I'm going to show you how it works. And I want to invite you to utilize our resources downstairs. We are located in room 125, but I'll repeat all that in a second. Okay, so we are a satellite of the Foundation Center. As the Funding Information Network, we help students, community members, and local organizations to they can utilize us as a resource as if we are the Foundation Center, which is located in New York. Mission statement is to strengthen the social sector by advancing knowledge about philanthropy in rural and surrounding communities. The entire point of this initiative is to give people who don't typically have access to these resources the opportunity to research their own funding, find out what other organizations are in their neighborhood doing the same things, and provide them with an avenue that they can use to collaborate with each other and with greater resources. I won't go too in-depth because the Foundation Center has been around for 60 years. It's supported by over 550 foundations. There's 5 regional centers, and there's over 470 funding information networks. So 470 of satellites that are throughout the country. It's primarily an American enterprise at the moment, though it is steadily expanding globally. That is to say, there's a lot of nonprofits that, if they're international, may not be in our database, but the database is growing consistently. Thousands of people will visit the website every day, and I'm going to give you some information further about that. That's in those bookmarks that I was talking about for grant space. And the overall element that we want to emphasize is research, education, and training programs. So Foundation Directory has access to over 120,000 foundations. Over 3 million recent grants have been listed by different grant makers and recipients. You can find 990 statements and 990 PF statements. So in this conversation about overhead ratios, the element that you would want to look at if you're giving money to an organization, or if you're deciding if an organization is worthy to give money to, would be their 990 statement. And as long as the organization reports the 990 statement to the Foundation Center, you'll find that you'll find that they go back several years. Usually somewhere between 10 and 12 will be found on any given organization if they've been around that long. There's different unique funder portfolios that are available, grant makers, job opportunities, requests for proposals, and the like. And there's also individual publications that are worthwhile. When it comes down to, I'm actually going to walk you through the Foundation Directory, so grants to individuals is actually exactly what it sounds like. It's very similar to Foundation Directory, but grants to individuals allows individual people, and this is what our community is using it for, to research grants that are of interest to them. If you're looking for scholarship money, for example, and there's a grant that gives that out, it might be worthwhile for you to take a look at grants to individuals. I will say that it's not as comprehensive as the directory. It's a little bit smaller, but that's because organizations that are giving grants to individuals, these are typically small, under $10,000 in life, and they're going to be largely local. I should say that when you use grants to individuals, what this will allow you to do is go to an organization and review what they have available when it comes to grants. So some grants, even if they're listed on grants to individuals, may not be accepting applications at the moment. You have to do further research. But I can certainly help you there. Grant space. That's what's on the bookmark. Grant space is where you should go when you're interested in finding out more information about how to write a grant proposal. If you're looking for sample documents, if you're looking for information, just basic things that you would find in a webinar. The Foundation Center offers free information and webinars that you can access. There are classes you can pay for, but the wide majority of them are free. And so if you have questions about starting your own nonprofit and you're not entirely sure what the process is or where to start, you want a refresher, or you just want something to give to someone that you know that you think would be more comprehensive, just give them grant space, send them there, let them do their own research, and you can walk them through it if you like it yourself. The point of it is to explore, engage, energize, and it's a very good site, all in all. Video recordings, podcasts, and the like. Foundation Maps is the last one. Foundation Maps is a directory crossed with Google Maps. So when you're looking for grant information, if you want to know about all of the nonprofit organizations, all of the foundations that are interested in funding a specific type of initiative, I don't know, let's say you're interested in women's health, then it will give you, if you were to type in women's health into Foundation Maps and Newark, it's going to give you all the organizations who carry that as an interest, and it's going to show you where they're actually physically located. And you can find more content information. I'm a visual person, so for me, that's really key. I think that it's as useful, if not more useful, than the directory itself when you're looking for local.
Is it okay if I summarize and force why you should care about this? Right, so if there's someone in business who wants to, they want to make money, it's not just as simple as being like, hey, I want to go into business. You actually have to go discover, do research. Is this going to make sense? Especially before someone gives you money. It's like, yeah, you may have it sounds like a good idea. You might be passionate, but wait a minute. Am I going to give you $100,000 until I know what's behind this, right? It's like, you want to know what's going on. And maybe think about it from, let's say, the military too. Any kind of military action, do you think they just sort of say, hey, we're all psyched, let's go? No, at least not, you want to have intelligence. You want to have the best intelligence possible of what you're doing. So what that means is that, it's nice that, you care about something. Each of you has causes that you care about. That's really nice. It's good. That's really important. And you've got to have that passion, right? But that's not sufficient. You need to show some intelligence to whatever kind of passionate thing that you're doing. And not just in order to make sure that you're successful. I mean, but I don't know. I'm not sure to the extent you guys have had this experience, but when you walk into trying to address something nonprofit as a volunteer, whatever, and you've done your intelligence, you just feel large. You know what's going on, and you know what to do, and you have a better sense of what not to do. So I think that's a good way of looking at all this. This allows you to be able to go into your internships or do anything in this nonprofit sector with a lot more intelligence, not just simply with caring.
Thank you. Yeah. And one other element to this. So for ratios, the way that it's always been, the way that I've always seen it, I've done some community service fundraising. I've been a canvasser for different organizations. One of the key questions that people tend to ask is, if I give you $1, how much of that dollar goes to the cause that I'm trying to support? That's usually the layman's way of discussing the value of your organization. And everybody has their own number. But the idea is that if you say that you're going to give somebody, if I give you $1, and you're telling me that only 30 cents of that dollar is going to go towards the cause, make it talk. I may not give you that information. And that's one of the reasons that people look up 990 statement. It's one of the reasons why people, when they talk about nonprofit organizations, so often are concerned with issues such as transparency. You want to know, what are you doing? How did it really affect? I want to know that my money went into it. And with this type of information, if you go armed with this, while seeking money or while trying to convince individuals to support your cause, then you have a much, much better chance of not only getting what you want, but being able to work within the landscape that you're trying to.
Yeah, just like for those of you who've taken business courses or something, if you come up with a business idea, someone's always going to want a competitive analysis, right? It's like, okay, yeah, it's yeah, you want to have a pizza place at your campus. That sounds good. Students like pizza. How many other similar things are there, right? Well, you can do the same thing with nonprofits. So if you're trying to get volunteers or funding for grant from foundations to be able to say, okay, this is the niche that I'm in, and this is how many other similar kinds of organizations there are. Let's say in Newark, that can give you a better value proposition, to get investments and get support.
So the only other elements to this particular presentation are we have a lot of different physical books that you can come in for. I would recommend that if we can, that we find it online. You can certainly come in to use the physical books. I just ask that they don't leave the center because they don't get one set here. But there are a lot of different publications that you have access to. The bulk that you want to use, for example, the foundation directory is the same one that you'll find online. So we can go through that together if you'd like. And this is just a list of a few of the local organizations, but there's so many nonprofit organizations that are located in just this one area. So I'm going to show you how Foundation Directory works, and I hope that that will, convince you that not only is it a worthwhile resource to use, but also if you're not entirely sure where to go, it's a good place to begin the brainstorming process. For our information, the business cards that I've passed out have the contact information. I'll say it one more time. To email, just email right now, WRITENOW@governmental.edu, and our phone number is 973-353-1571. You can find us downstairs on the first floor, and available hours are Monday through Thursday from noon until 9, and also on Saturday from 10 to 5. So this is Foundation Directory. When you first come in, you'll see a key search and master search. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here, but suffice to say that the way that it works is standard for any other database. What you're doing is you're going to put, if you have the grant maker's name that you're seeking, then by all means put it in. I'm going to say for now under the location Newark. And when it comes to fields of interest, what I'd recommend is that you actually view their index, just because if you happen to say that I want to work in, children's rights or children and youth, you might have something, or children, you might have something specific in mind. I would recommend that if it is clear, if you want to do children and youth, children, museums, children's rights, I would recommend that's why you use the index. It actually is very helpful. And then also, so let's say you're interested in the location being Newark, children's rights, and total giving. We'll hold off until okay. What you wind up with is a list. You can print this list out if this is sufficient, if this is all you need. But you'll find the name of the organization that's giving the money. You'll find their location. You'll find their total assets. In this case, I'm going to just put the first one, Prospect Flow Foundation. They have 65 million in assets, and so far they've given away close to 3.5 million. When you come here, you can see the organization at a glance. This will give you all of their basic contact information if you want to know more, including their website. I absolutely recommend you go to their website, use their About section to find out more information. If they have an annual report that might be useful to you, it will tell you things like who their donors are and give you an overview of their budget, that sort of thing. And it will give you the most recent financial data. The 990 statements can be found also at a glance. So this goes back from 2014 to 2001. and it will bring in their tax document. If they're really, really huge, it might be like, for example, if you were to go for Prudential, it's going to be over 800 pages. So, but if they're actually a reasonably small organization, you can find this information. It should show you how they spend their money. It will show you who their highest earners are. It will show you who they work grants to, and it could be worthwhile for you.
The 990 easy, is that will have the same information or less?
I'm not familiar with it.
Oh, I think so.
The smaller
Usually
organization.
it's less because it's small.
Yeah, like I think they use less than $200,000 a year. They use something called 990 easy. So I just want to know if it's at this critical.
I'm not certain, but I will look into it. Outside of this, it will give you background, their overall limitations, purpose of their activities, programs, their fields of interest, the scope into which they give the money, also the different types of strategies. Some organizations will not give this capital campaign. Some organizations will not give for private use. You have to do some shopping, but it could be worthwhile for you to just this information alone could be worth finding more in your chosen area of interest. There are maps here, but the map function is much simpler. It's actually on the United States. It's not like Google Maps. But if you find the directories helpful, you want more, you need to use the directories.
Is this a free sign-in?
It's
Or do you need to sign in? I know on the other ones you were showing.
Oh, I thought you were serious.
It's a free sign-in and GuideStar, go to GuideStar. You have to actually pay for the financial portion of that, where you can get a free Ontario Navigator. So I'm wondering, is this like that?
No. It's it is tiered, and you can sign in for free. But then the version we have is the professional edition that has all of the information, all of the financial data. If you go for free, I don't believe that you're going to get 90 statements and all that, but you can still use their services. It's just not going to be up to date. That's one of the reasons that we recommend.
And this is up to date.
And another way you can think about this is part of bundled in with all the tuition that you pay. Yeah, Rutgers has access to things responded to.
You pay us, we pay them. Any other questions? Okay. That's all I have.
All right. Well, thank you.
No, I thought you were dead ass. I was like, are you serious?
Do you know those videos like how they're all dry?
yeah. As hell.
No, I'm going to bring this back here. So again, yeah,
We have
talk
no
about the
viewers.
responsibility that, so we're given,
No
so
viewers.
this class is being used $2,000. And so, I mean, there's certain things that are keywords, maybe unrestricted funds. Like, so in other words, we're trying not to just be like, have a lot of rules. There are some, because the university doesn't like to just give out money. I think it has to be a 501c3. Local nonprofit, one or many organizations, that's something that we would decide. I don't think we necessarily need to decide that at this point. And a few other things, near-term donation terms. So this won't be a donation a year from now. It'll be while this class is still in session. All right. So it's a near-term donation. And one of the things that this team, this module is going to do is for nominated organizations, sort of asking them this question, like, would a donation from us in this range, have some kind of impact on your organization's mission and results? Because of the time frame and also because in my mind this is an innovation course, I believe in doing things differently than these things normally are. Like foundations and most sources, you have to do this. There are all these requirements, and you have to write a grant, you know? We're not doing that. We're not gonna make nonprofits right away. But we are gonna be clear about what we're about. You know, it's unrestricted funding, talk about your organization's mission and results. And this is actually very radical. It's pretty radical. Most, I mean, have you ever seen like how solicitations of foundations, usually they say, we will not pay for program expenses. That is the standard. It's actually hard to find. I don't think you've ever seen, you know, funds that actually, do they, have you seen any?
Seeing like funds to do no.
Yeah, usually it's
It's
like,
very rare.
it's very rare. It's like, it shouldn't be this rare, but it is. So we are gonna be totally radical. We're like, no, do not take money and use it for program expenses. We want you to use it that are not program expenses, because every organization needs overhead. So we're gonna solicit it, and what the team is gonna do is summarize as part of the discovery about each of the nominated organizations, summarize how, you know, how they respond. Yeah.
Interesting art centers. We don't use non-program expenses. There's a lot of supporting art centers. Theater companies that do the shows and fund it themselves through third-party donations and funding that. Let's say it was like the NJ PAC is used. Like I know for a fact that the NJ PAC, those performers get paid through a different handle, and that the donations that we get through the NJ PAC are for building, paying the ticket people, you know, kind of things like that, but it's not specifically for whatever event that they're running. So I know a lot of women art centers are exclusive.
And actually, that's okay. That's okay. Just by thought of it, I probably would put in another slide referring to the Zuckerberg money.
100,000.
100 million. Yeah, because when I first come to spot when that was announced, and what's sad is what ended up happening was what I was afraid was going to happen. So, you know, here's 100 million coming in, trying to manage cost, and as someone who has spent a lot of time in Silicon Valley, you know, studying the companies, it's like what Zuckerberg really was saying was, here's $100 million. Come up with a better model of what you're doing. That is what it was really about. So it's almost like saying, could we use some of this money to buy everyone in this class lunch every Wednesday? I mean, I think some of us went, oh, that's a waste of money, right? But not necessarily. I mean, it's like it actually could be the other one. It's like, why are we gathering all together for? If it's just to have everyone do what you normally do and have lunch, that's a waste of money. But if, let's say, we have a program with it, that every Wednesday we're going to have lunch and focus on coming up with out-of-the-box ideas, we're going to have bring in people, that's something different. So it's really about how do you use your time and money in a way to come up with a better way of doing something, like something to create an innovation from it. So I would hope that because of the innovation context of this course, if someone is just simply saying, oh yeah, give us a, you know, money, just put it in just sort of operating non-program, that's okay, but I would think that something more interesting would be along the line here. I mean, maybe, I'm trying to think of an example. Maybe a nonprofit needs to have some money to purchase like cell phones. Like they can cover the data plans, but they kind of want to have money to cover the cell phones. I mean, that's a kind of an infrastructure thing. Or maybe it's to send certain people into training so that they can, you know, like accounting or some other kind of training, a certificate program or something like that. That might be it. So in a way, hopefully, I mean, and again, we'll see. I think it depends on what what the nominating organizations come back with too, and what their needs are. But yeah, something that's more on the innovation side, or at least has potential to have innovation through infrastructure. Let me make sure I'm following this. It's like, you guys, it's do you see the connection between infrastructure and innovation? Like, what does that look like? How can improvements in infrastructure enhance innovation? How might that look? Actually, let's break into pairs and triples for 5 minutes. So how could better infrastructure lend itself to innovation?
Obviously, I mean, it pushes you to like come up with new ideas every time, right? So like different infrastructure equals different ways of thinking.
Different infrastructure, yeah.
Improvements to infrastructure, like the IT, financial skills, public aspects. It also facilitates general up-to-date environment that makes it easier and more efficient to come up with more innovative ideas. So without that environment or from the infrastructure, you wouldn't be able to have those innovative, new, whatever concepts.
So it's kind of like it's an environment thing. It's kind of like saying that you're trying to study and you're in a place that's just not there's pleasant noise, but there's sometimes this bad noise. And then versus a library. So you're affecting the environment in which people are working. What other kinds of things are you thinking?
Yeah, but I was going more along what she was saying. It's like that you're making it easier so they don't have to be stressing or thinking about the extra stuff. So, like it gives them more time to actually think instead of worrying about unnecessary things that could affect them in the program.
Who's going to say, like, alleviate constraints? How should I figure out connectivity?
Your success rate for skill training.
Success rate has a lot of sense.
And then, what, as far as, like you have programs put in place and the more they evolve, the success rate of that compared to when you had first started in that first instance.
Basically, so it's almost like in a given unit at a time, like a person or a group of people are able to get more done. That's a lot easier. And it could be through selection. In other words, picking the right people to do something.
Like you're training those who don't already have it, so you're making them higher. So the success of even putting anything into that training begins with like what your outcome is.
Baseline for what you're supposed to do, what you're expecting. You build a foundation to see everything before you continue to go up and learn more and build out whatever you're doing.
Innovation, because you're opening up a whole new mindset to someone who didn't have that before.
What's Slack's mottos up this year?
easier, less busy, something like that.
Yeah. So it's kind of like, so like, for example, the Jersey City team is doing something involving census geography. I know they don't know what census geography is, right? I mean, isn't it worth my while to have one or more people learn what census geography is? So the more people that know, the easier it is to get more work done with that data. So in a way, that's what's going on here. It's like, what kind of addition can you make to make things easier? Too often, I think we're in a society now where it's like, you want people to do more, but you give them less. You know? Oh, let's fire someone and don't replace who we fire. You know? Or put pressure on people. Put pressure, competition. That's how the thinking is. But what this is saying is that if you put strategic investment into something of little, you can make things a lot better. All right, so going to this denominated. So these are the ones that I've seen, I posted. Actually, is there anyone from the experiential philanthropy team that comment on that, or if you're someone who's nominated any of these nonprofits, that you want to comment on?
So I like volunteered and worked in we actually done the same thing with recently also the homeless RU created. We also previously had so St. Lucy's and homeless shelter just as a background for everyone. They serve meals and they also house the homeless. Homeless shelter, I believe it's smaller than St. Lucy's, it houses about 50 people. St. Lucy's is bigger, and St. Lucy's also provides services where people can come and take a shower and stuff like that. So even if you're not living there, you can still come in and use the services. Career training too, to help you with your resume and help you find a job.
And so I want to point out something just look at the names, right? I mean, Hudson Pride. I mean, that sounds good, right? St. Lucie Shelter. I mean, shelters sound pretty good. I mean, who's against that? Hoboken Shelter. Liberty Humane Society. I mean, yeah, we should all be more humane, right? The Y Center. That's interesting. Bianca's Kids. Come on, who could be against Bianca's Kids? Unless I know Bianca and the kids are bad. Unless I have that association, this seems like pretty good. And come on, cookies for kids. Cookies for kids? Yes. Cookies for kids with cancer or something?
Yeah.
Definitely.
Is it center?
If that is it, if I'm sorry, I'm wrong, but yeah. But if you had an organization called Cookies for Kids with Cancer, what kind of cold-hearted person would be against that? Right? America needs you. I mean, so these are all, they all sound great. They all sound wonderful, right? But it's $2,000. Even if it was like, some people even say, hey, if it's $100, if it's your $100, I mean, don't you think you would care, right? Like, where's this really going? And so there's a list here, and so one of the things that the team is going to do is, so Ron, perhaps it's like to go a bit deeper. So yes, these are, no one's going to argue that. I'm just going to assume that they're all good causes. But then, how are they executing? And how could they make use of the extra money? You know, so like just like in the for-profit world, they have this sort of incremental thing. So it's like, if I put an extra $50 into this business, will it be worth it? Well, that's kind of like a class we're going to have to figure out here. Like extra resources, and it might be that there's some good causes. Maybe they don't need them. And so it doesn't make sense. Maybe given the amount that we have and the timing, where is the impact most likely going to be? And again, I think I want to say, not guaranteed, but it's like risk reward. I mean, there's some risk, but we want to have some results. All right, so I want to do one last thing, cover one last issue before I want to give time, like as you to break up into the teams and talk to each other. So there are a number of things that happened. So one of the things is I sent out a message today so that because your projects for this module are going to end at the end of the week after spring break. So that they're going to end. Some of the projects might extend into module 3, but the way my thoughts today are that just like these teams are mostly six teams of 6, I'm leaning towards making it 12 teams of 3 in the next module. And if there's an extension, when there's an extension to, let's say, the experiential philanthropy into module 3, or Jersey City, if that goes into module 3, or the finalizing work, if that happens, not only does it go from 6 to 3, but if you're on the module this time, that team, you're not on it next time. So you need to really prepare to hand off whatever you're doing with your deliverable to someone who's not going to be on your team. And because of that, I mean, that's why I sent out the message that we're going to have the engagement university news team be the one managing and facilitating, putting out things on social media. It doesn't make sense to have 6 teams creating their own Facebook accounts or, I mean, we want to have like some cumulative effect. So every team should be thinking about content that they're creating, like snippets, video, pictures, story, in order to give to the engagement news team so that they can work with you to almost like tell the story of what we're doing like outside. But there's 2 things, 2 like sets of points I want to make about community engagement in terms of the course, because this course itself I view as a form of innovation in our participation in it. One is external participants, and so what I'm going to look for, and the whole community engagement team already has taken steps for this. There's a member of the whole community engagement team in every other team, and so I'd like your cooperation with them so that we can have by the end of this week a count and a roster of Module 1 external participants. So if you, like in the process of your Module 1 team, there was an external participant who contributed, at minimum, we want to count how many unique people are there. But then preferably if we have it, like a name and an email address. And if they want to be involved together. I mean, if you don't know, we'll just assume that they don't. But we want to have like a list and then have your current count of the external participants from the teams that you're at now. And the reason why we want to do that is the target for this semester is a cumulative participation of 10 times the number of enrolled students. We have 37 enrolled students in this course. That means the number we're looking for by the end of the semester is 370 participants. I don't know exactly what the number is at this moment. We have about 40, I think we have about 56 people on Slack. So there are 37 people in this class, and add myself 38. There's actually other people who are not enrolled in this class and not me who are in Slack. And one thing that I'm hoping to do is after spring break at the beginning of module 3, I'm thinking about, no, just, I want to open up Slack. Like Slack uses by invitation, but there is an option that I can, they always kind of ask me. I can set it up so that anyone who has a certain email address can just sign into Slack on their own. So I'm thinking is at the beginning of module 3, anyone with a Rutgers.edu can just sign up. Anyone. But in order to get there, there's one issue here.
It's like the third.
Online profiles and process.
I think.
So when you're creating content and working with the community news team to disseminate it, I'd like you to think about this, like, this is the way of creating a face to the world. This is not simply like, hey, I put something online. This is to external participants who have no idea who we are. They have no idea what the projects are. So really, it's, you know, it takes a while to build up for people to understand what you're doing. So that means that we need to, you know, we're pretty much going to rely on the class to begin the narrative of what we're doing. So in other words, you don't need to think deeply like here's like 5 pages of what we're doing. I mean, it might simply be, hi, my name is something, the most basic thing to get it going. And I'm going to leave that, I'm going to leave the pacing of that in the class's hands. So I'm not going to be spending time asking for the Facebook page to have a cover photograph or a profile page. I'm not gonna sit around and micromanage like when things are going up. But one thing I do know is that the longer we wait before this gets started, we're failing. We're failing because there's no way that we'll be able to get someone, you know, no one's going to simply with a snap of the fingers know what your projects are. It's one of those things you just have to put your toe in and get started. And then over time, you know, following can be created. And the nice thing about the Facebook page, because it's already exists, there already are about 200 people who like that page. So by posting, you are reaching someone. I've done some pretty, some probing experiments with advertisements with Facebook as a platform. So we can actually do that for very little money. There are ways that we can use the Facebook page to reach all kinds of people, especially outside the United States. Actually, that seems to be the most impact. Actually, I'll leave that for another time. I'd like to show you how big of an impact that you can get with Facebook ads. Okay, so with that, I think I'd like to stop and allow you to meet with your teams, within teams, across teams, and I'll be here at least for 5 minutes.